All right. Thanks everybody for joining us today for Marriage Chats. Welcome your
Mhm.
host. I'm Tiara.
And I am Adrian. Welcome back. Welcome
Welcome
back.
back, everybody.
Before we get on into it, we're not going to have a love bites this week because, as you see, we have a beautiful guest, Miss Raphaella. But before we get into everything, into the meat and the potatoes portion, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to
All
do
the
that,
things.
okay?
Mhm.
All the things. Also, follow us on the socials. Go check out our website. Send us hugs and kisses and prayers. I think that's about it. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. So, we're going to go ahead and welcome our special guest for today, Miss Raphaella Silva.
Welcome,
Welcome.
Thank
Rafaela.
you. Hello, ladies. So great to
Hello.
be here with you
Hello.
guys.
Yes,
Thank
we're glad to have you.
you. Yeah, so we have Miss Raffaella on today because we're going to delve into emotional intelligence in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
We all still working on it. I'm working on it with myself with these children that I have because we're all trying to work on it. I'm slowly healing that inner child so I could stop being a child and having temper tantrums at almost 40. So so let's go ahead and hop into our meat and potatoes portion this morning because I'm hungry.
So, Rafaela, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
So, my name is Raphaella Silva. I am what I like to call a resource coach. I started as a business coach and then became a life and resource coach. A resource coach is just people that give you resources for you to be able to take what you need and be able to apply it to your life and, you know, do what it needs to do. But I began to start getting more connected with emotional intelligence. Like I like to call myself emotional intelligence advocate because I believe that when one understands emotional intelligence, they can completely transform their lives. So that became my passion,
Mm-hmm.
and that came about when I went back to school for behavioral health science. I just got like really obsessed,
Yes, I'm in
really
the process of
obsessed.
going back to school for that as well.
Um, and so it's like, I try not to always try to look at people and begin to nitpick, but it does help understanding others. And so, yeah, so that's one of the things that brought, so, that I got so passionate about it,
Yeah.
trying to understand what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And tell us a little bit about what you do now as far as like, do you have workshops? Do you do trainings or anything that kind of
I
help people into
I
this?
do. So I'm still full blown life and resource coach. I also work with different types of modalities, like healing modalities. So I
Mm-hmm.
use Reiki, some forms of Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also do human design, also gene keys, which we can talk about
Yeah.
on another other episodes. I wouldn't go too much into it, but I just try to use different tools to help you so that I'm not giving you a cookie cutter, like, here's what you got to do. I think we all know what we need to do,
Yeah.
what we want to do, right? But because we're so different, we have dealt with different things in life.
Yeah.
My goal is to always say, okay, let me look at who you are so I can give you what you need and then you can get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that I do a little bit of everything. When it comes to coaching, not just one size fits all kind of sort of ordeal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because, one of the things that we really try to stress here on the show is that it's all about making sure that you're learning your partner, learning their needs, what they want, and how those things change. They change throughout
Hmm.
the years as things arise, as triggers come up, as new seasons or challenges come up. Like there's always something to learn new about your partner as they're learning themselves. I
Yeah.
mean, they're still learning themselves
Yeah.
and what works for them. So we
Mhm.
really want to like dig in today on what it looks like to be emotionally intelligent
Mhm.
within your marriage, how you can help your partner, and how it can be applied regularly, like an everyday basis with your
Yeah.
spouse, because it's very important. And there's not a lot of people who are still yet to really be aware of how important emotional intelligence is. So that's why we really wanted to dig into this today.
Yes.
So let's talk about first, what is, if you had to define emotional intelligence, what is that? How do we define it?
So emotional intelligence is simply the ability to manage your own emotions and also understand the emotion of others. Now, see, I say understand, not manage their emotion.
Right.
So what emotional intelligence does is the ability to manage your own.
Yeah.
When you become self-aware, which is the first pillar of emotional intelligence, when you understand what's happening over here with you, and of course, before you can get to understand others' emotion, there's one more step to it. But basically, what it is just being able to manage your own emotions, because we're always going to have emotions, be they're good, bad. We're going to go through a range of emotions in this world, in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's going to go away.
Right.
Sadness is always going to be there. Anger is always going to be there. I think a lot of times when people think about emotional intelligence, they think, oh, if I understand what emotional intelligence is, I can just be like zen and calm. No, you're still going to be all these other emotions. But having that awareness of what that is allows you to understand what's happening and what it is that you need to do. Or maybe there's something that you need to understand about yourself, or there's something that you need to heal about yourself, right? But the emotion, I always said that all emotions are good. What you do with those emotions is a little bit different. But all emotions are valid. So I never invalidate someone's anything. If you're angry, if you're resentful, if you are whatever it is, I always say that is there for a reason, right? What is it trying to say? I always say emotion is a language that is trying to communicate something to you, and our job is to figure out what it is saying. What is it trying to say, right? So the first pillar, emotional intelligence has 4 pillars, and the first pillar is the self-awareness. Understanding, why am I feeling this way? And we might not even know it's something that's underneath that you need to kind of and it might take some time. It might not be like, oh, I figure it out. No, it might take you a week. It might even take you a month in that you being in that emotion to figure it out. And that's why the awareness is important, because if you're not aware of it, what happens is you become reactive. You start yelling, you start screaming, or maybe you go into a depressive state. You don't want to do anything. So it's going to manifest itself some kind of way. And so having awareness allows you to, even if you are feeling like you want to yell, or feeling like, you want to lay down for a little while, having the awareness allows you to say, okay, I'm dealing with this, I'm feeling this, as opposed to like, I don't know what's happening to me, or not even having the awareness at all, just being reactive at all times, right?
I mean, response is everything. I've been learning that more and more, about how to be more aware about how I respond to things, and just learning how to, like, in that moment, try to start to recognize anyway what I need, or what I need to do. If that means taking a breather, if that means going to meditate, if that means saying, like the communication is huge with your partner. They can't read your mind. Yeah, they might know you. Yes, they're trying to learn you. But in that moment, they may not really understand how you feel. And so I had just made a post on TikTok last night about giving grace to your partner in those moments, because you never know if something that they're trying to process themselves, if they even understand, if they know. So if they don't, how can they really express it to you in that moment? You got to give them time to be able to. But it's just important, along with that response of trying not to shut down. But, as your partner starts to learn you, they'll kind of hopefully be able to start picking up, like knowing when I need to give you a moment,
Yeah. I know when I need a moment, I always announce it, like, I gotta go to the room for a minute. I just have to go to the room because I'm getting overstimulated. I'm getting anxious. I'm like ready to blow off on everybody. So, and he understands it when I say I gotta go to the room. He's like, okay, go to the room. I got the kids. So I just go and I take my breather. I might look at some funny videos. I might just lay there. I might look at a true crime something, because true crime, it always it always calms me down. A good Law and Order, SVU. Yeah. But that's how I take my I have to announce, hey, I'm going to the room. Just give me a moment. Give me a moment. So that way I'm not releasing it on everyone.
Right.
Well, that's fantastic, because the second pillar of emotion intelligence is self-regulation. Now, one thing that I always say, self-regulation is just tools. So, for example, you go and watch Law and Order, it calms us. There's something about that show that does something for you that kind of makes sure, okay, I'm calm and I'm good, right? I also would like to point out that depending on what it is that you're feeling, it's not a one size fits all. So, for example, if you remember when we were kids and we were behaving a specific way and parents put us on timeout, right? Depending on what that kid was dealing with, it might not have needed a timeout. It might have needed something. They needed to do something with their hands. For example, when I was a kid, I used to act whatever kind of way, we get in trouble. And my aunt used to put us in a corner. Wrong thing to do. We're going to mess with that corner. Right. So my grandfather, not understanding what emotional intelligence was, of course, back then, decided like, I need to take that energy that kid has and I'm put it to do something. So he would put me in the kitchen to chop things. And guess what? I calmed down, because what I needed was to redirect that energy somewhere else. So not all of our emotions is going to require that self-regulation tool of meditation or sleep. It's going to require for you to go inside of your closet and scream or punch something, not anyone.
Yeah.
Okay. But sometimes, especially when it comes to anger, a lot of it is stored in our bodies. And it's, if we've been angry before, so you know how hard it is to contain anger. It's like it's a force that's so strong that sometimes it feels like it's beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
But what that means is, okay, there's something I need to do with my body in order for me to get that out of my system. So that could be a walk, that could be going outside and planting something, because it needs to be something that's physical and tangible in order to process what that anger is. So it's interesting that you mentioned understanding when it comes, let's say, for example, both of your partners are angry, and neither have the emotional intelligence to deal with it. When a person says, I need to go take a walk, let them go take that walk.
Yeah.
Right? That's their way that they have discovered without understanding what self-regulation is. But somewhere along the way, they figure out, if I go take a walk, I'm going to be good. It's something physical. Some men like to run for 10, 12 miles, right? Let them run for 10, 12 miles.
Right.
What's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong. It needed to do what it needed to do in order. Maybe you guys need to go dance, or I don't know, something that's going to get your body to release all this energy that all of a sudden just came in all at once. So self-regulation is that.
So that it just made me think about when we talk about applying it into relationships. Like, I know a lot of times we're thinking about what I can do, like you said, to self-regulate, cool off, go have a moment. But, I'm also thinking about the people who has maybe experienced a lot of rejection in their past, whether that means, daddy issues or mama issues or whatever. And so they really struggle where while we know that may be an insecurity, it's still something that they're working on. And so to consider their feelings in that moment, I started thinking about what can be done that maybe they could do together. And I thought about this. I don't know if it was a TikTok or what I seen when this couple, when they realized that they were getting heated, they, instead of like, let me go to your room, go to your corner, they both got down on the floor, laid down on their belly, went like this, and face each other. And so because they did that, they had to do all that to get down on their belly and go like this, like it made them laugh. Kind of like made them like calm down, like, what are we really arguing about? Like, I love you and you look silly right now doing what you're doing, and let's just talk this out, because ultimately we're on the same page. We're probably saying the same thing. we got to this point now where we're like, a bunch of anxiety and emotions are just risen. So let's just take a moment. And even if they don't say anything,
right?
Just look at each other, and it's in each other's eyes. You're close, right? In front of each other.
Yeah, it creates like an intimate bond. That's intimate connection, so it breaks the tension. But I've also seen some couples speaking old English to each other. So instead of like the argument, it's like, husband, I went to fetch the milk from the Frigidaire, and like they're talking in old English to like make sure they're calming down. And it does the same thing. It makes them laugh.
Yeah.
It makes them calm down. Like, even though on the TikTok, of course, it's like, fun and games or whatever, but it's like if you do something fun, that'll definitely snatch you up out of that being angry, because it's like we're being silly.
Yeah.
Like you just said, it's you are realizing we're being silly. This is stupid.
What's your opinion about that, Raphaella? Like those type of measures?
Well, here's the thing I would say, even though that's a great measure, right? The key thing here is, remember, we can go ahead and play this thing because it does, we're laughing at each other. But I also want to be sensitive to those people that if they do try that and it doesn't work.
Right.
It's worse. And they just want to punch each other. Like it'll get down there all of a sudden, because it's not, like I said, not one size fits all, depending on what it is. Like if what it is that you're being rejected. Like some people were rejected at the womb. So that might even trigger them even more, as opposed to solving the actual problem. Or you might solve it for that time being, but the issue is still within.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, for those people that have been rejected, that has rejection issues, right? What I always say is, because let's just be transparent here. No one starts a relationship saying, hey, by the way, I have rejection wounds.
Right.
No one does. You're the one, you met your husband, say, by the way, I have these type of wounds. I have an abandonment issue. No one is taught, because guess what? They don't have the awareness that they do. They just know they don't like to feel left out, and they don't like to be said no to. That's all they know.
Yeah.
And I remember once, and this recently, I met a guy, and I told him, I say, by the way, I have abandonment issues. I just want to let you know, because there might be some things that you might say that, or some things you might do that might trigger me a little bit, right? I just not that you need to solve my wounds, like I was actually honest, but I just need you to become aware of that some of your behavior might impact that. So what I need from you is to always not, if something's going on, to let me know.
Yeah.
Right. So his question to me was, well, how is that going? Oh, it's manageable because I have the awareness, and I'm just letting you know. So you know what he would do every single day? Every single morning, like clockwork, he would send me a message. So there was always this communication. So to let me know I'm still here. Right. I'm not going anywhere. Now, does that person needs to do that forever? Absolutely not.
Right.
Enough so that you can feel safe. And then I say, okay, he's going to be here. He's not going to go anywhere. And even though that relationship might end, which it did for me, right? There was never this, what I got to experience differently in this particular situation is I didn't feel abandoned. I just came to a place where it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So the behavior, my behavior changed in terms of how I felt about that. I didn't feel like, oh, that person left me or abandoned me. No, it just didn't work out, because during the whole time there was that togetherness, there was never a feeling of abandonment.
Yeah.
So, and then it gives you an opportunity, if you do have abandonment or rejection issues, to figure out why, to process it, to feel like, well, why do I feel like I feel rejected? Sometimes you might need to go back in time and say, what happened when I was a kid, right? For some kids, their parents left, or maybe they went through something, what I call uteral trauma, where maybe a parent tried to abort a child. and their rejection started there, right? But it wasn't successful. So that starts there. So sometimes you might need to go back and maybe go some journaling, maybe do some therapy work, counseling work to figure out, okay, why is this happening over and over again with me? You might need an outside source to help you process all that's going on with you, right? Again, sometimes not necessarily say, oh, I'm going to go do this and it's gone. No, you're going to deal with it differently. You're going to say, oh, that's that thing happening again.
Yeah.
Let me use my tools.
Right.
Right. Let me use my tools. It helps when I breathe. It helps when I watch Law and Order. You know why you're doing what you're doing. It's not just you're doing because your body's feeling some kind of way and you don't have the awareness.
Right.
The goal is to have the awareness so that you can communicate with others. Here's what's going on with me. And you never know, in terms of relationships, in terms of marriage, your partner might have the tools to say, okay, while you do this, let me hold on to this for a second, right? Which takes us to the third pillar of emotional intelligence, which is empathy.
Yeah.
So that's when that part of emotional intelligence is what allows you to understand and be with someone else's emotion. So if you understanding your emotion, let's say, okay, I got angry. I need to release some steam. I need to go watch Law and Order. I feel better. That means let's say if you had a cup of coffee, right? That means you're full. Like when you're upset, this is full. The moment you begin to use your tools to deal with what you're dealing with, it's like you're taking a sip. So self-regulation is medicine. So you're taking a sip, taking a sip. So now you have half a cup. There's all this space over here left. That space is when it allows you to be with someone else's emotion. That means you're no longer at capacity. You have, the amount of whatever you're dealing with has lowered. Now I'm with you. And that is really important if you have kids, because kids at a constant time wants, mommy this, mommy that. And if you're at capacity, and your kid is like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the goal of emotion intelligence is have the awareness. That's the first pillar. Second pillar is to do the self-regulation tools, whatever that is for that particular emotion that you're dealing with. And when you do that, it frees up space. And then you can be with someone else's emotion. Then you can be empathetic to what they're dealing with. So I like to say when it comes to relationships and couples, where you start, he might pick up where you end.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? So like you're angry and then all of a sudden you're full of capacity. All of a sudden he becomes angry. Okay, now you pick up where, you know what I mean? So it goes into the whole circle.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't mean that everything is going to be resolved. It just means like, okay, it's almost like a balance. Okay.
Right.
Where sometimes it's going to be like this or sometimes it's going to be like that. But the goal is to get it to be balanced as much as possible, not all the time.
Right.
Because why? Because there's things as you begin to unearth these things that are going on with you, there's more underneath.
Right.
So so that's the goal.
So let me ask, because I know we're looking at it from a standpoint of like recognizing when you're in certain moments, when you're highly stimulated, upset, or whatever, and how to manage those things at that moment. But what would you say would be a good way of proactively, progressively working on it in your marriage? Not just because someone is upset or trying to figure out something in that moment, just regularly. Like, what's a good way to practice this on a monthly basis, yearly basis? You get what I'm saying? Because there's people who are somewhat aware, but just because you're aware don't mean you're actively working on making it better. Because I feel like it could all get better in. Does that make sense?
Well, here's the thing. You can use your self-regulation tool until you're blue in the face. It doesn't mean that things are not going to happen.
Yeah.
So if we're trying to be proactive so we don't have these moments, it defeats the whole purpose of emotions anyway. It defeats the whole purpose of existence. So things are good, relax, go have a drink, have a good time. Who cares about what's happening in the world? That's the thing I always say to people. Don't make healing a chore. It's not a chore. It's not something that you have to check off your box every day.
Mm-hmm.
We are put here to live our lives, to enjoy our lives, to have a good time, and I have to really think about all things. But when there's time to deal with things, those things are going to show up, and you're going to deal with them. So you can be a monk, you can do all your prayers and all your, whatever it is that you do to make sure that your nervous system is regulated. You might walk down the street, might not even be your mate, might be somebody else who's totally going to take you out, and you're not going to know why. So because there's something for you to discover, and I want to bring the spiritual aspect into this conversation, because we're that as well.
Yeah.
You can be doing great. Marriage can be going great. Kids are just doing great. And you walk outside the door, somebody say something to you, and all of a sudden it just took you out completely.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what? You come in the house and you're yelling at your kids and you're yelling at your husband, like, what?
Yeah.
But whatever that person outside of your space did that took you out, and now you're taking that out on your family, right? Because there was something that for you to discover about yourself. The work is always about us. It's never about our partners. It's never about anything outside of ourselves. Right? Yeah. So I would like to say, you can do the things so you can have, like a regulated nervous system, but the goal is not to live a calm life.
Right.
The goal is to understand life.
Yeah.
Emotions. The goal is not to live this.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that yesterday in service, about how you want to try to stay balanced, not too happy, not too negative, I guess is the word I'll use, but you just want to make it balanced, recognize things in the moment, know how to deal with it, whatever, but it should be balanced, not super happy all the time.
Yeah.
So
no, it's not going to be always good. It's not going to always be bad. It's, we just experience life as it comes. And like you said, use those tools as we're going along the way. Cause I know, right? Yeah, sometimes, if my husband's in a bad mood, sometimes I'll pick that up. And then that's why I'm like, cause I ain't. And I have to go to the room and go watch something funny, because I'm like, I'm not trying to pick up, whatever, something, pissed him off at work. I'm not trying to pick that up. I want to help him calm down, but I can't help him calm down if I'm like, because that it doesn't work like that. So
and that makes me think about how our other bullet point for consideration in your partner's growth, like to your point, Raphaella, this is two people's separate journey, but I do feel like that there's ways that we could still help each other in the process, like what Adrian was saying. And this is something too where you got to kind of like watch them and see. But yeah, there's times where my husband may be upset and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give you a minute. I'm gonna go let you stay over there. Maybe you should take a nap, or is there something I can do for you? Because what you're giving me right now, maybe you had a rough day, or maybe something I missed. But I'm gonna give you a little bit. You come back to me when you're ready. And sometimes he might be like, "What you mean? What I say? No, we'll talk about it later." Because emotions is up here, and I'm not trying to get up there. So I'm gonna let you stay over there, and then when you're ready to talk, then we'll talk about it.
And I would just say this, right? Nothing no one does is about us. Nothing. That's the first. I don't know if you guys ever read the book, The 4 Agreements.
I heard of it, but I haven't read it.
So one of the first agreements is nothing no one does is about us. It really isn't. We're dealing with our own stuff, and we're looking at the world, and we're looking at the world from our lenses, our experience, our pain, our anything. So whatever happens over here, it's over here. Now, of course, it does impact our surroundings, right? It does impact other people. So let's say, for example, I'm upset over here. There's something going over for me to deal with, me to work through in a partnership. And you might say, well, I'm going to go ahead and let you go be over there with your stuff, right? Until you're ready to talk about things. What if the person where the person doesn't really want to talk about it. It's nothing really to talk about, but just for them to process.
Mm-hmm.
So the key thing I always say is, how can I support you?
Mm-hmm.
Because it might be my own stuff that I've been dealing with for over 50 whatever years. It might not need to be talked about, just for me to be my body, let it go, let it process. And then guess what? It's done, it's gone with. I don't need to rehatch it or talk about it with you. Now, depending on how one behaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And impacts you. Let's say, Tiara, like, well, the way you talk to me, just, so that person might come to you and say, you know what, I'm just still dealing with my own stuff. But I recognize that that's where the emotional challenges comes.
Right.
I recognize that how I reacted impacted you, and I wanted to apologize or whatever it needs to do, or I won't do it again. I'll make sure the next time I will just deal with it whatever kind of way. Now,
yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Now, the thing about that is that's will get really tricky sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The other partner has to be really aware of themselves to not take that personally. What you mean you're not going to talk to me about that? I'm your wife. I'm your blah, 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 blah. Because now they made it about themselves, or you know what I mean? So it's this emotional intelligence quirk is this, where one begins, the other one ends, the other one starts. It's a cyclical space.
Yeah.
It's a cyclical space. Okay, you're here upset. I'm trying to figure out why you're upset. Okay, now you're calming down. All right. But the way you acted was, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, but it's already done. Well, what do you mean? Here we go again. So it's where one ends, the other one begins. It sometimes can look like that.
So the only thing I guess I'll add to that, because I get what you're saying and I agree with what you're saying, but I also, even though it's the person, their own stuff or whatever, and they may not want to talk about it, I'm also looking from the standpoint of like, with you all living together, being with each other 24/7, this process of two becoming one, like, even if it's not talked about right now or you don't want to talk about it, it's going to come up again. So while I'm not saying that you have to be ready to just drop everything, tell me everything, explain, because you still might not even be able to, I think at some point it still warrants the conversation to at least give, that's part of that communication, right? Because we know that communication is one of the things that helps marriages to fail.
Yeah.
So you gotta, for me anyway, and this again too, this is one of the things where it's not like a one size fits all, but depending on your partner, especially for a woman, like, we like to communicate. We want to, not to say that we got to fix it or try to fix it, but like, eventually, okay, so this has been happening several times now. So if you don't want to talk to me about it, it's fine, but let's figure out how we can help you, because I've been with you for 25 years. And this has come up now several times. So we need to look at this type of thing. I don't know what the verbiage would be depending on what it is or however it happens, but while you may not want to tell me, it's something that still needs to be dealing with, because I'm feeling everything you're feeling. I love you. I'm with you every day. I can see you. I know when you change. I know when you whatever. So this process of becoming one means that we need to be on the same page. There needs to be a level of trust where you can be transparent. You can share. It doesn't have to be all, but how can we become one if I'm always saying at the same time, well, it's just me, or it's I'm dealing with my own stuff too. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. So here's the thing that I normally say, right? Remember, everything that we want to be able to be part of, and I'm going to explain the one thing in just a second. It's really, at the end of the day, about how we're feeling, how it's impacting you. So the first rule of thumb is, what is it about what's happened that is impacting you? What it is that you need, because now it's a need that you're having because it's impacting you. Someone's behavior is now impacting your behavior. So it becomes like, okay, I'm dealing with this, right? But it's impacting over here. So this is what's going on, right?
Yeah.
The one is that circle. So right now, when you say, I'm dealing with this, well, I want to know what it is, it's not it's not turning. The wheel's not turning. The cycle is not moving. So that's why there is this friction. You're over here trying to figure out what's happening. He's over here trying to figure out what it is that he might not even know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. All he knows is like, I don't know. And people sometimes make up things because they know that there is an impact going on this end so that the things can move. But guess what? It doesn't move because they still don't know what it is that they need to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get
it's not an easy thing. It is not an easy process.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes something.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a whole lot. But the cool thing about it is, and like the word is cool, is that with whatever this person, however this person is being or showing up in the world and how it's impacting you, it's also for you to deal with something over here too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we say, I want to help, I want to be able to do. That's because there's an impact going on over here.
Yeah.
There is a loss. I wouldn't say a loss, but it's impacting maybe how you are with each other intimately. It might be impacting how the kids, there's an impact all around. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be resolved, but how does one apply emotion intelligence to, help support this person, have the empathetic thing? Well, you become aware, go back to that pillar again. You become aware of your stuff. You begin to self-regulate whatever anxiety, whatever feelings you have. You try to communicate as much as possible because this person's still over here, right? Because the goal is to go to that cyclical. One is really this and not this.
Right. Yeah.
Most people think one is one is this. It means where you start at end, that's the cyclical motion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, so I would say, the first thing I would say, how can we support you? Because that way people have the option to say what it is that they need.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to us trying to figure out, well, I'm going to do this for them, or maybe I'll do blah, blah, blah. Because then that's you playing on your own anxiety. That's you playing on your own, whatever that is, because we think we have to do something because we don't want to feel this way anymore.
Yeah. 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 That's an important part to bring up about considering their growth is by asking them how I can support them. And there may be times they don't know. There may be times they have to really sit with it and think about it.
They have to think about it. But one thing they know is whenever I'm ready, I can go to Tiara or Adrian and say, okay, are you able to do, because it might take them some time to figure out. It might take them months, especially when it comes to men. Men were not taught to express, communicate, or even talk about how they're feeling. That's us. That's our thing. We can sit here and girl. They never were given that space. So you have to remember that one thing about emotional intelligence, depending on what it is that you're dealing with, it might not always feel safe.
Yeah.
When you begin to create self-awareness, remember other emotions might show up as well.
Yeah.
Right. Who did I talk to recently where I said, it might have been an Instagram video, that when you begin to unearth one thing, something else might show up under. That's going to even be more triggering than the first thing itself. Yeah. So when we're dealing with our partners, our mates, and we're like, oh, let me go see what's going on here. And they're like, well, let me tell you what happened to me when I was 11.
Yeah.
They're trusting you with it.
Yeah.
The moment that is out of their system, now there is this empty space that once occupied that emotion was like, that was that thing they were holding. You're like, where did that thing go? What do I do with this thing? I don't know what this is. Uh-oh. Shut down. Let me close all the other doors because I don't want all the other things to step out.
Yeah.
So if one is just asking questions just so they know what it is that you're dealing with, so I can feel safe and I can feel better, then guess what? There's not really much of a support there. Right? If you want people to tell us what's happening so that we can feel better about ourselves, so that we can feel safe. Because sometimes when people are dealing with things and they're not sharing with you, then it causes anxiety in you, then your nervous system just becomes dysregulated. So what do? We go to them. Oh, you need to tell me what's going on because I am your wife. I am your this. I'm your that. That's a sign of emotional dysregulation. That means you're trying to get somebody to give you something so that you can feel safe.
Yeah. So we
That's not what
obviously,
empathy is. Empathy is I am self-regulated
yeah,
and I can come to you and say, how can I support you? And let you be
yeah, yeah.
until you're ready to come and say, hey, here's what's going on with me.
Right. So we're definitely going to have a part two. We are
Mhm.
definitely
Yeah.
over on time, but this was definitely very good dialogue. I
Mhm.
can't wait
Yeah.
to dig into more. Did you have any final thoughts, Dree, before we close out?
No, it all makes sense. And now I want to start putting it into practice because we are definitely working on emotional intelligence with both of our girls. I'm trying to work on my own emotional intelligence because I don't want to be snapping on people in this house.
Snap on a pillow. I always
But
say
we
snap on the pillow, punch
definitely,
pillows.
right, right. Or go watch somebody head get chopped off on Law and Order. But
Mhm.
but we definitely are going to schedule for you to come back and talk
Mhm.
more about this because I know there's so much more to just kind of dive into. Like this is very helpful. It's definitely something that all of us can apply to our own relationships, being or whether it be our marriages, our parental relationships, our relationships with our children. It's definitely something that is needed. So
Mhm.
we definitely appreciate you for coming on
My
Yes, thanks for
pleasure.
coming on,
today.
Raphaella.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And we're going to leave all of Rafaela's information down in the what is it? What's it called? The description. We're gonna leave it down in the description. Go ahead and check her out. Follow her on all the socials. Give us your socials.
Yes, I am Raphaella Silva. So it's I and the letter M, Raphaella Silva.
Okay, is that on all the platforms or
Yes, it's on the platform Facebook, except for what's the X? I don't do X, but it's on
oh
Instagram, YouTube, and also Facebook.
And you
awesome,
have your own
awesome.
podcast, correct, Raphaella?
I do have my own podcast called Rafa Said It Here, where our season is starting back in January.
All right.
But there's a lots of good episodes already there. And I do have also a workshop coming up on December 14th, which is coming up soon.
Mhm.
You can find information rafaelasilva.com.
Awesome, awesome. So, like I said, we'll have all of that down below. Thank you again, Miss Rafaela, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Um, don't forget to like, comment, and poop. And what
And if
else?
you have any questions for Raphaella, or if you
Yeah,
want to talk about something further in depth with emotional intelligence, drop
intelligence.
that in the
Yeah,
comments as well, and we'll talk about it when we have her back.
yeah,
Yes, sure.
yeah. Well, before we go, like we always say, a good thing ain't hard to find.
But it takes work to keep it.
It sure does. We'll see y'all.
See
We'll see
y'all.
y'all next week. We love you.
Love you guys.